Caseus. Jedi Redeemed. Chapter 8. The next several days dragged on. Caseus felt like less of an asset to the rebellion, as many had called him in the past, and more like a prisoner without a cell. He was allowed to roam freely throughout the Massassi Temple, and was given access to the rainforest areas around for exercise on the condition he was accompanied by rebel personnel. His strength at least was returning. Unlike on Kessel, here he was given 3 meals a day and access to basic necessities. These comforts did not help ease the tension, however. Not the tension in his mind, and not the tension between himself and Gaidom. They had hardly made eye contact since the trial, much less spoken to each other. Still, Caseus had to stay in the loop one way or another. After finishing his morning routine, Caseus made his way to the main hangar and found Kresh and Tosa playing a game of sabacc. Good to see you guys staying productive.
The recluse emerges from his hole. What do you want, boy?
Have either of you guys seen Bendel? I want to talk to him.
He's busy fixing the maintenance droids in the repair bay.
Don't they have guys for that?
They do. But thanks to that messy business on Dandaren, we've all been dealing with the consequences. He's on repair duty for the next 7 days. As for Kresh and I, we're stuck here, grounded until further notice. Not that I care all that much. I've been needing a little time to decompress. Now, do you need anything else, or can we get back to our game?
Caseus rolled his eyes and left as Kresh flipped his cards over and roared at Tosa.
Cheating! I am offended, Kresh. But since you gave up, I'll add it to the score.
Caseus made his way over to the repair bay, and as expected, Bendel was there, goggles on his face, working on a gonk droid. Hey. Bendel looked up at Caseus and removed his goggles, wiping his face with a dirty rag. Hey. Listen. Bendel, I don't blame you, Caseus. So don't apologize. I'm just as much to blame. And if I could do it again, I would. Caseus walked over and assisted his friend in his task, soldering a few wires together before looking back to the young man. Do you know what they're going to do with Totami? All I know is that they got him and Rax's kid locked away here in the temple. They won't say where, though. Probably afraid someone will try to finish the job. Why did you spare Haji? I'm not saying you should have killed him, I'm not sure I would have been able to show such restraint. I don't know. As much as I hate him for what he did, I understood why he wanted revenge. Rax was the reason my dad died. You and Liara were the reason his died. That's not entirely true. Rax died from his own actions. But it doesn't really change much at this point, I guess. What about you? You holding up okay? Relatively speaking. We shouldn't have gone to Dandaren. In the end, all that changed is that Gaidom is blinded. I'm a threat to the rebellion in their eyes, and Dotami is in a cell. I don't feel any different. I know how you feel. Still, we took out a few gutter slugs for what they did. That's something. What do you think they're going to do with them? Can't say for Haji. There's not much they can get from him. Dotami, on the other hand, has a lot of connections. My guess is they're going to interrogate him, find out what he knows and who he knows, see if they can use that info to benefit the Alliance. After that, I don't know. Whatever he gets is too good for him. You still think things would have been better if you killed him? No. Things wouldn't change for me. Caseus' comlink suddenly began to beep as he picked up. This is Caseus. Caseus, report to the main hangar. You're needed immediately. Be right there. Putting his comlink away, Caseus looked at Bendel and put a hand on his arm. I wanted to apologize for my attitude in the past weeks. I shouldn't be taking out my emotions on you. I have to remind myself that you lost her too. Bendel stayed quiet but nodded to Caseus before the latter left the repair bay and made his way to the hangar where a group of rebel security officers were gathered around a large junk freighter, just setting down. He knew that ship. Stepping past the officers, he saw Guidom standing in front of the ramp, arms crossed. The ramp lowered with a hiss as a few pirates in dirty gear stepped off the ship, weapons at their sides. From off the ramp, he heard a methodical clacking noise as a stout Rhodian dressed in a lavish coat plodded off the ship, using a metal cane to assist him. Rondo? Caseus stepped closer as Guidom looked at him. They contacted our comm channel. They said they wanted to speak with you. Did you know anything about this? No. Not at all. It's okay, though. He's an old business partner. Guidom looked at the Rhodian being assisted by one of his men. Report back later. I'm trusting you here. Don't try anything funny. And don't let them try anything either. Okay. Caseus stepped forward as Guidom returned to his station. Rondo.
Caseus Urshon. You look terrible.
Looked in a mirror lately?
85 and still kicking.
Caseus stepped over to Rondo with concern and placed his hand on the Rhodian's back. You all right?
Hardly. Even with my contacts, it took 5 years to find you again.
Yeah. A lot's happened. Come with me. Let's talk somewhere private.
As long as I can sit. I've grown weary of walking for one day.
Caseus led Rondo and 2 of his crew to his quarters, as Rondo signaled for them to stay outside and sat down in a chair across from Caseus.
That apprentice of yours, Liara, how is she?
Caseus looked down at the table and said nothing.
I see. My condolences. She was a good kid.
Why are you here, Rondo? With the condition you're in, space travel should be out of the question.
Don't patronize me, Urshon. I've still got enough left in me for a few more voyages.
If you say so. But why are you here? You said you were trying to find me for years.
Yes. Caseus, do you remember when we met?
Yeah. You pulled a blaster on me in a bar.
So I did. I thought I'd seen the end of you that day, but one way or another our paths have crossed time and time again. This time, though, I fear it may be the last.
You're dying, aren't you?
Such is the way of life.
Caseus felt a wave of sorrow fill his heart. Rondo was a scumbag, a liar, a crook. But he was a good person, and someone who helped him out when he had no real obligation. To think this may be the last time he would see him. I'm sorry, Rondo.
Sorry? Don't feel sorry for me, boy. I've lived quite a life. I've traveled the stars since I was a young lad. I've seen all kinds of strange and wondrous things. Made a few friends, and a whole list of enemies. And I've lived far past the expected lifespan of my kind, all while attaining exuberant wealth. All things considered, I've had a pretty good run. I do have a few regrets, however. Hence why I've been looking for you for so long. You remember, back on Blengil, I gave you back that ratty old book we collected on Coruscant.
Yeah, I still have it.
That wasn't the only thing I managed to get my hands on.
Rondo reached into the deep pocket of his coat and pulled out an object wrapped in leather cloth. Taking it slowly, Caseus unwrapped it and saw something he hadn't seen since before Order 66. A Jedi holocron. Rondo coughed into his hand and nodded.
I was going to sell it. Turned out a lot more difficult than anticipated. After a while, though, I felt it only right to return it into Jedi hands.
Caseus smirked. You mean after failing to sell it?
What can I say? I'm a man of business.
The two laughed and shared a moment of quiet reflection. Is there anything I can do, Rondo?
Are you available to make one final voyage with an old fossil like me?
Caseus knew that the Alliance wouldn't allow him off Yavin for any reason. But he wouldn't say no. Where are we going?
Back home. Before I die, I'd like to see the moons over Rhodia one more time. Then I'll be ready to go.
Caseus nodded and helped Rondo to stand. We'll do it then. I'll let the rebel leaders know you're staying tonight. We'll head out first thing in the morning. Rondo coughed and nodded as his men helped him out to the door. Caseus didn't sleep well that evening. He had too many thoughts swimming through his head. Lounging back on his bed, he held the holocron in his hand, examining it closely. Holocrons were only truly useful in the hands of a Jedi. Devices containing knowledge spanning thousands of generations. Now he had one. And he had no idea what to do with it. Closing his eyes, he concentrated as the holocron floated in his hand and opened as it glowed with a faint bluish-white light. As he did, a message appeared through a holo recording. This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen, with the dark shadow of the Empire rising to take their place. This message is a warning and a reminder for any surviving Jedi. Trust in the Force. Do not return to the Temple. That time has passed, and our future is uncertain. We will each be challenged. Our trust, our faith, our friendships. But we must persevere, and in time, a new hope will emerge. May the Force be with you. Always. Caseus stared at the recording as it faded away, and the holocron slowly reformed into one piece. Obi-Wan was right. His trust in others, his faith in the Force, and his friendships not only with Gaidom, but Pip and the others. All of them had been put to the test in the nearly 20 years since the fall of the Order. And he wasn't sure he hadn't failed these tests. The only thing he knew for certain was that his days of trial and hardship were far from over. And if he wasn't careful, he truly would lose everything. He awoke early in the morning after finally falling asleep. Gathering his gear, he stepped out of his quarters to go find Rondo. It was as he stepped out into the hall, he saw a group of rebel personnel carrying something, covered in a white sheet. Caseus slowly walked over and saw Rondo's men looking dour. Beneath the sheet, Caseus made out the hand of Rondo. No. Stepping closer, Caseus was stopped by two of Rondo's men.
He's gone. I'm sorry, son.
No. He wanted to see his home one more time.
He wasn't going to make it, Jedi. He knew that when he came here.
Caseus stared in sadness as the body of Rondo was taken out of view and placed on board his ship.
Where will you take him? Back to Rhodia, to be buried with his father and brothers. He left you something else.
The Weequay placed a data chip into the hand of Caseus before patting his shoulder and going on his way. Caseus shut his eyes tightly, fighting back his sorrow. Rondo knew that the voyage home wasn't going to happen. Instead of making one final journey home and passing peacefully on familiar soil, he chose to see Caseus. Walking into the hangar, Caseus watched as Rondo's freighter closed its ramp and flew off into the Yavin skies. Gaidom stood nearby and noticed Caseus' saddened demeanor.
Caseus?
Caseus looked at Gaidom for a moment before returning to his quarters. As he sat in silence, he looked at the data chip and inserted it into his holoprojector, as an image of Rondo appeared sitting down in a chair.
Caseus, by the time you see this message, I'll be gone. If you're wondering, no, this had nothing to do with you or the Alliance. My time is here. I've known for a little while. I wish that I could have seen my home one more time. But I'm a man of business, and my work isn't finished just yet. Encoded in this chip is a list of contacts I've made over the years. People with no love for the Empire. They are willing to join your cause, should you ask. I live to see the rise of the Empire. My only regret is that I won't be around to see it fall. You and I have had quite a history, Urshan. I don't know much about the Jedi, but if even half of them showed the courage and guts you've shown, maybe I was wrong about them. I'm proud to call you my friend, Caseus. I'm sorry I never said so. Whatever happens, I know you'll be all right. Goodbye, friend.
Caseus shut his eyes as tears flowed down his cheeks and onto the floor. He cried. Then, he smiled. Even in the end, Rondo proved himself much more than the common crime boss he portrayed himself as. He was a good man, and an even greater friend. He would miss him, but he was glad to have run into him in that sleazy bar on Coruscant. The door opened, and Gaidom stepped inside.
Are you okay?
I'll be fine. Thanks.
Maybe it's time to clear the air. There's been a lot of bad blood between us lately.
I know. But that can wait. Rondo left something. Caseus handed over the data chip to Gaidom. Rondo left a list of possible allies to join the cause. The Alliance needs all the help it can get, right?
Right.
Gaidom. Everything that's happened. My actions.
I know.
When this is over, I don't want us to part ways as enemies. I've made a lot of mistakes. You're a greater Jedi than I am.
Caseus.
For all your faults, I know one thing for sure. Out of any Jedi I've ever met, you've shown a strength unlike any other. Master Takai would be proud of you. So would Liara. Caseus looked to Gaidom and nodded, as he held out his hand. Smiling, Gaidom took it and shook. The bad blood between the two weary Jedi, at least for the moment, had been quelled. Caseus only hoped that it would stay that way in the days to come.